What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We have less than 3 days until college football is officially back. Now, they're playing some college football tomorrow night. You got FCS kicking off their season. And look, FCS football still counts as college football, but it's not going to hit the same as compared to watching TCU versus North Carolina to kick off the season. Speaking of that game, is Bill Belichick going to be able to start his second season coaching college football with a win? Or is North Carolina going to lose in similar fashion to the same way they lost to TCU last year? We'll break down that game, give our prediction along with prediction for several other week 1, week 0 matchups. We got Auburn versus Baylor, Clemson versus LSU. You guys kind of already know who I'm picking to win that game, but I am a little bit shocked at the amount of folks I see sleeping on Clemson. They're making it seem like LSU is playing Clemson School of the Blind in week 1. They're treating Clemson as if they're playing Bishop Sycamore. I just don't like this narrative that Clemson is some tune-up game week 1 for Lane Kiffin and LSU. We have to clear up some misconceptions about Miami, Alabama, and we got to talk about probably the most popular college football player that we've ever discussed in the history of the JT Sports Podcast, that being former 5-star recruit Cormani McClain. A lot of you Florida fans have been asking for an update on him all off season long, and we finally have that. Look, if you're happy that football, college football mainly, is finally back, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content. We're going to be dropping content like it's nobody's business. Also, make sure that you check us out wherever you get your podcast from. Apple, Spotify, the links to the podcast are down in the description below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy the content, you want to support us. It's free to do. And without further ado, we can't get into it because we got a $50 super chat. Shout out to our guy, Akheem. I'm not going to try to pronounce the entirety of your name. Don't want to mispronounce it. Appreciate you, my guy, for the love and support. Greatly appreciate you with the $50 super chat, my man. I wish there is no message. I don't know if the message disappeared, but I greatly appreciate you, my man, for the love, support, and the donation. Without further ado, man, let's dive into it. It's very confusing to me why LSU seems to be treating Clemson as if this is a tune-up game. Now, people within LSU's program don't feel this way, but a lot of LSU fans seem to feel as if Clemson has no shot to even keep this game competitive with how good LSU is supposed to be this season coming up. And Vegas kind of feels the same way. Vegas right now is laying 9.5 points on LSU to beat Clemson. And what's so odd is how many LSU fans have come at me, whether it be in the comment section on YouTube or on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and X, and they love to always use how Vegas has LSU as a 10.5 point favorite, as if Vegas wasn't wrong last year when they had Alabama favored to beat Florida State by 14.5 points, and we saw how that went. And if you're Clemson, if you had to pick any week that you could play LSU, this would be the week. LSU, there's no denying that they are the more talented team than LSU. They have brought in what I consider to be the greatest transfer portal class in the history of college football because they got a lot of great players that are going to go on to get drafted high in the NFL, really good quarterback, great offensive line. You're bringing in Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive minds in college football. You're a defensive coordinator. I understand the overwhelming amount of confidence in LSU winning this game. At the same time, though, the gap in talent between LSU and Clemson is not as wide as what a lot of you LSU fans believe, and it's not as big as what this point spread that Vegas is putting out there is either. Clemson just put 9 guys into the NFL. Sure, they haven't recruited at the level that they once used to when they were at their peak under Dabo, but in spite of the drop-off in recruiting somewhat, they may not have top 10 recruiting classes anymore, but they still are bringing in very good players that have been developed. So Dabo Swinney is still showing that he's a great talent evaluator and a very good recruiter still, in spite of Clemson not having the same level of dominance recruiting that they once used to 7-8 years ago. You can never judge a team based on what they look like on paper, especially a team like Clemson that's coming into this thing fully embracing what a lot of you LSU fans are saying. This team is no longer what they used to be. They don't have nowhere around the same amount of talent as what LSU does. Dabo Swinney's hearing all that. That's why Dabo Swinney keeps underselling how good this year's Clemson team is. Anytime people ask Dabo Swinney, how you feel about Clemson this year? What's your confidence level in this team? Dabo Swinney keeps saying, man, we're just a bunch of nobodies. We're a bunch of nobodies walking into Baton Rouge, Death Valley in week 1, and everybody's expecting us to just lay down, roll over, and get our ass beat in Lane Kiffin's debut. That's not going to happen. One thing about it is that you can't define Clemson based off what they were last season. Sure, they were a huge disappointment. They were expected to at least be a playoff team, and they didn't even come close to that. They went 7-6. LSU had a very disappointing year as well. You also went 7-6. But the difference in the perception between both of these programs coming into this game is that there's a lot more optimism around LSU because you got a new coach. You got a lot of new talented players that's walking in. The thing about it is we still don't know what this LSU team is going to look like because these players haven't played a single snap. And not only that, but there's a lot of parts that have to gel. Sure, the talent's there, but I don't know if the offensive line is going to be as good week 1 as what it will be in November. When you're playing a team like LSU that has been heavily built this year from the portal, you want to play them in week 1. Sure, LSU has a talented offensive line, but having a good offensive line isn't always about talent. It's about communication, experience. How many snaps do these guys have with each other? None. So just because you have the talent doesn't necessarily mean that it's all going to gel in week 1. Sam Levitt didn't throw a single pass in all the spring. And you mean to tell me that now all of a sudden he comes late in the summer, early in the fall, that's enough time of preparation for him to be ready against a Tom Allen coach defense? And I understand that Trinidad Chambliss, when he transferred to Ole Miss last year, he didn't participate in spring practices. He got on campus late and he balled out. Trinidad Chambliss wasn't the week 1 starter for Ole Miss last year. That was Austin Simmons. And you also weren't going into week 1 last year asking Trinidad Chambliss to go up against Clemson. Tom Allen's defense going into year 2 is going to be even better than what it was last year. And the biggest advantage that Clemson has against LSU in week 1 is their defensive line versus LSU's new look offensive line. Sure, from a talent standpoint, LSU's offensive line is very good. But good offensive lines aren't good necessarily because of talent. It's also about how many snaps have your starting five on the offensive line play with each other? How good is their communication? How good are their blitz pickups going to be? I don't think that LSU's offensive line is going to gel right out the gate week one, especially when you're going up against a really solid defensive line led by one of the better edge rushers in America and will help. Clemson also has a All-American linebacker in Sammy Brown. And while we're talking about the defense, Clemson isn't lacking talent on offense either. They have two former blue chippers starting for them at wide receiver, and TJ Moore and Brian Wesco. Sure, Clemson is rolling in some new faces on both sides of the ball as well, but they don't have as many new pieces that they're waiting on the gel as much as what LSU does. LSU can be the better team and still lose this game because everything hasn't come together in week one. I'm not hating on LSU. I don't know how many times I have to yell this at you guys. I have LSU making the freaking playoffs. I just don't think that in week one, everything's just going to perfectly come together and Lane Kiffin is going to have this storybook beginning to his LSU head coaching tenure. I just think that a lot of people are disrespecting Clemson because of how much of a disappointment last season was. Dabo Swinney made a lot of changes this offseason. He even broke his number one rule, refusing to use the transfer portal. He finally used that thing. If anything, Dabo Swinney went all out this offseason. Not all out compared to everybody else, but at least his brother's finally using the transfer portal. Sure, you may not like the hiring of Chad Morris, but Clemson had their most success with Chad Morris as the offensive coordinator. And like Mike Bobo, he might just be only good with Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Sometimes you just have coordinators that they have success one place and they can't find a way to replicate that success anywhere else, and then you bring them back to that place, and then all of a sudden, they end up being good again. And sure, Christopher Vazina doesn't have a lot of experience, but the guy has been sitting on the bench learning for the last 3 years. So it's not like you're throwing out a true freshman quarterback. I really think that LSU fans are underestimating just how good of a team Clemson is and the gap of talent between Clemson and LSU. It is not that wide. It definitely isn't 10.5 points wide. I will be shocked if LSU runs it up on Clemson. I have Clemson winning this game still 17-14. You got a Tom Allen coach defense. You got a motivated Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney's coming into Death Valley, and he's going to pull off the upset over LSU with his team full of nobodies. Y'all treating Clemson like this is Bishop Sycamore, like this is Clemson, the school of the blind. This is still one of the best coached teams in college football, in my opinion. And one thing about week one that has been proven true time in and time out is that the best teams don't always walk out of week one with the W. And we saw it last year when Florida State dominated Alabama. And you think that LSU is just above that to where in the third quarter they're going to be throwing out their backups? I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I don't think this game is going to be the walk in Disneyland that a lot of you LSU fans that I see in the comment section on my TikToks, Instagram, and YouTube think it's going to be. You're in for a big surprise. I cannot wait for this game to kick off, man. I really am tired of talking about this game. I'm tired of all the cockiness from LSU fans. I'm just ready for this game to tee off and this season to start. This game can't get here soon enough, man. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. Shout out to my guy, Dubs. We greatly appreciate you with the $5 donation. Shout out to my guy, Vault PDFs. He says, JT the GOAT, man. Man, I'm not the GOAT. Y'all the GOAT, man. If it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't be able to be here in this position, man. It's all thanks to y'all. If you enjoy the content, you want to support us, all we ask is that you give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast from. You can find this episode along with all of our previous episodes on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Spotify. The links are down in the description below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy. Also, give your boy a follow on Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook. You can find us at JT_Sports_. Let's continue on, man. Auburn versus Baylor. On paper, to me, this game looks like a mismatch. You have Auburn, who's coming into this game with a lot of new faces, a new quarterback, a new head coach, and Baylor has a lot of new faces on their side of the ball as well. Looking at the big portal class they brought in, headlined by former 5-star quarterback DJ Lagway. Both of these teams are bringing in a lot of transfers. You have a lot of new faces, but for different reasons, though. I feel like Auburn's transfer portal numbers are incredibly misleading. You look at Auburn's portal haul, and you feel like this is a roster full of a bunch of guys that don't really know Alex Golesh's system. It's a bunch of guys that have just been brought along in the transfer portal, like how every new head coach does when they take a new job. They just bring in a portal class of 50, 60 guys. This isn't necessarily the case. Alex Golesh is pretty much importing his USF offense into Auburn, which includes a good amount of guys that already started for him and know his offense, know his system, and the most important one, that being quarterback Byrum Brown. Byrum Brown isn't learning new teammates. He's not learning a new play caller. He pretty much is picking up from where he left off last year, just in a different location, wearing a different uniform. Baylor, on the other hand, their transfer portal haul isn't because they have a new head coach. They have a head coach in Dave Aranda who is on the hot seat. And I think he was shocked that he didn't get fired last year, which is why he went so hard in the transfer portal. Now, their big objective in the transfer portal was to improve the line of scrimmage and improve that defense. Baylor essentially is trying to reload their team this season through the transfer portal. Meanwhile, Auburn, on the other hand, they're not really trying to rebuild their team necessarily. They more so are importing players from Alex Golesh's system at USF, and you're bringing in a good amount of depth at other positions on the offensive line, on defense, because you have some major losses there. But I feel like Baylor is starting much further behind than what Auburn is, because Auburn has some talented players. You know Auburn's wide receivers are going to be pretty good. You know how good Auburn's running backs are going to be. And we know what we can expect from a DJ Durkin defense. We don't really know what to expect from this Baylor team this year, especially offensively, where they only return one starter, which is an offensive lineman. You got a new quarterback. You have new receivers, new running backs. How's this all going to look? How's that defense going to look? Despite Dave Aranda being perceived as one of the best defensive minds in college football, you look at Baylor's defensive performance over the last couple of years under Dave Aranda, it's been absolutely dreadful. And the biggest red flag that you have a head coach that's about to get fired is when the side of the ball that he's supposed to specialize in is the worst area of the team. Last year, Baylor was averaging nearly 30 points per game, 400 yards per contest, and they couldn't even finish above 500. Normally, when you have a team putting up that kind of production on offense, at the bare minimum, they're bowl eligible. Baylor could even be bowl eligible with how good their offense was due to how bad their defense was. And you're going up against one of the better play callers in college football, one of the better offensive systems in college football, with what kind of system Alex Golesh is implementing at Auburn this year. I think that for Baylor to have a shot at winning this game, you at least have to put up 28 points. 28 points or more is what it's going to take for Baylor to win this game. Because if you're a Baylor fan, can you confidently say that, yeah, I can trust Dave Aranda's defense to keep Byrum Brown and Alex Golesh offense from under 30 points. I don't really know about that. I could get behind that idea if you were telling me Alex Golesh wasn't bringing in pretty much all his starters on offense from his previous team. Baylor, on the other hand, you have a new everything on offense. How is it all going to come together? How is it all going to gel? Auburn is a lot more ahead of Baylor in terms of knowing what their team is and what their team's strengths and weaknesses are compared to Baylor, who's kind of coming into this game not knowing what to expect. Now, for DJ Lagway, I do think that he brings a higher ceiling at the quarterback position than what we've grown accustomed to seeing Baylor have. The problem with DJ Lagway is that when he has a bad play, he can lose confidence and he can get incredibly cold in the middle of the game to the point where leaving him out there pretty much puts your team at a disadvantage. The talent is there, but it's just the consistency is what I question with DJ Lagway. And I don't love the fact that you're going up against a DJ Durkin coach defense and you have a quarterback that's a turnover machine. 23 interceptions and 19 starts is very alarming. For Baylor, I feel they got to come out hot and they got to get out to a fast start. Auburn can overcome a slow start because you already have so much continuity and familiarity following Alex Golesh from USF to Auburn. Baylor can't really afford a slow start. If DJ Lagway starts out slow, the guy completely gets timid and he checks out of the game. I feel like Auburn wins this game 38-24 or 38-27. I can't trust this Dave Aranda defense with how bad it's been over the last couple of years. Offensively, I expect for them to put up some points because regardless of them only returning one starter offensively, their offensive coordinator is pretty good. DJ Lagway can complete the forward pass. It's not like DJ Lagway is some scrub. You know, at worst, he's an average quarterback. At his best, we really don't know how good DJ Lagway could be because we never really saw him play at his best during his time at Florida. Maybe a change of scenery is what can help DJ Lagway. I feel what helps Baylor is that while Auburn's offense returns a lot of familiarity following Alex Golesh, their defense has to overcome a lot of losses. And also, just with the fast pace, the tempo of Alex Golesh offense, Auburn's defense is going to be at a disadvantage because they're not going to have a lot of time to rest. They're going to get fatigued a lot faster, and they're going to need to showcase that they have good depth on the front seven to be able to keep those guys from getting fatigued early in this game. Alex Golesh offense is the same one that Josh Heupel runs at Tennessee. They like to snap the ball fast, get the plays in fast, and not allow the defense have a lot of time to substitute guys. And it's kind of addition. It's kind of like addition by subtraction, in my opinion. Last year, Auburn's offense sucked, but their defense was great. This year, their offense should be greatly improved, but I think it hurts the defense on the back end just because you're asking your defense with the offense having you on the field for more plays with how fast paced they get the plays in. You're going to be on the field for probably 20, maybe 30 more plays than what you were last year, which I think hurts the ceiling of Auburn's defense this year. Now, I still think Auburn's defense will be good enough to win this game. But look out for that. Look out for midway in the third, fourth quarter. If this is a tight game, does that eventually hurt them? Does that make it a lot easier for Baylor to run the clock by running the football and winning the time possession battle? So if this is a close game, late in the third, early in the fourth, I would be extremely concerned for Auburn because I really feel like Auburn is going into this Baylor game with a lot of advantages. It looks like a mismatch. It looks like all signs as of right now kind of point that Auburn should not only win this game, but they should win it by a few possessions or two because this Baylor team, even Dave Aranda, I don't really think they truly know what they're going to get out of their team this year. So I like Auburn to get the win. 38-24 is going to be my final score prediction. I could see Baylor being able to keep this thing close, however, though, if DJ Lagway hits the ground running. But I just think Auburn just has so many advantages, and I just don't really trust Dave Aranda's defense to get too many stops in this game. So I like Auburn with the dub. The first game of the 2026 college football season is going to be across the pond. We got TCU versus North Carolina. Year 2 for Bill Belichick. Is he going to start year 2 off with a W or another demoralizing loss that speeds up his firing a lot faster? North Carolina has one of the toughest schedules out of any non-SEC Big Ten team coming into this year. By the end of the first month, we could already see Bill Belichick fired because you got to play TCU in this game. Then you eventually have to play Clemson and Notre Dame. And then you got Pitt. This is a very unrelenting schedule that North Carolina has this year. This is a way more difficult schedule than what they had last season. So it's very important that North Carolina comes into this game and they handle business, because there aren't too many games that you look at North Carolina's schedule and you have a lot of confidence in saying, yeah, I know North Carolina can win that game. And I think the big question about this TCU game isn't more so is TCU going to win. It's more so, has North Carolina improved enough to keep TCU from running away with this game as what they did last year? Because I really don't know. Defensively, North Carolina is a lot better than what they were last season. Last time TCU saw this North Carolina defense, it seemed like North Carolina's defense didn't practice for that game. They were missing tackles. They were out of position, a lot of blown assignments. And it probably also doesn't help that their defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, Bill Belichick's son, is going to be out for this game due to an undisclosed medical reason. So we don't even know who the hell is going to be calling plays. Is it going to be somebody else on North Carolina staff? Is it going to be Bill Belichick taking over the play calling? We really don't know. So while North Carolina defensively has improved, I like their defensive line. Not only do they have some good front-end talent, they got pretty good depth at that position. That's probably the best position on the entirety of this team is their defensive line, their ability to impact the quarterback. Their secondary isn't too shabby either, but they lost all their starters at linebacker last year. So you got new linebackers, your defensive coordinator isn't going to be there, but North Carolina defensively going up against Jaden Craig, who's going to be replacing Josh Hoover for TCU, they have the advantage somewhat. You're going up against a guy that has only played against Ivy League, FCS level competition. Now, that doesn't mean that Jaden Craig is a slouch. Jaden Craig, statistically, is the greatest quarterback in Harvard history. He's Harvard's all-time leader passer in yards and touchdowns. So this guy can play. He just hasn't played against this kind of competition yet. This is going to be our first look at Jaden Craig. And if you're a North Carolina fan, if you have Bill Belichick calling the plays, you got to feel confident that your defense is going to be able to have a better outing against TCU this year than what they did last year. And I think that North Carolina's defense gives them a chance early, because when North Carolina was matched up against some of the lower tier, middle of the pack ACC teams last year, their defense was pretty good. Offensively, though, is where I'm extremely worried about North Carolina in this game. You hire Bobby Petrino as your new offensive coordinator, replacing Freddie Kitchens. And Bobby Petrino is a phenomenal offensive coordinator, probably one of the best offensive coordinators that Bill Belichick could have hired. So this is going to be an improved offense, but how improved is this offense going to be? Because last year, North Carolina had one of the worst offenses in all of college football. I think they were averaging, 12, 14 points per game? So the bar is already set pretty low. But just how much does Bobby Petrino improve this offense? Because if you're a casual college football fan, you're probably familiar with the name Bobby Petrino. You probably know who Bobby Petrino is. But just because Bobby Petrino has a good resume doesn't mean that this offense is automatically going to catapult from being where it was last year to one of the best in college football. Because does Bobby Petrino have the players this year? I'm very disappointed in Bill Belichick's quarterback decision. He's choosing to start Billy Edwards. Now, Billy Edwards is the best quarterback on North Carolina's roster. I'm disappointed in Bill Belichick's decision to not be more aggressive this offseason at making sure that he got a high-level quarterback. Billy Edwards was the best you can do. The last time Billy Edwards was a starter, he threw 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions at Maryland. That doesn't scream, this is a huge upgrade over Gio Lopez. You're basically telling me that Bobby Petrino can elevate this guy to where he's good enough. Now, you got Demon June. You have, what's his name? I'm missing it. Jordan Shipp at wide receiver. So those are your two best guys on offense. And if you can't find a way to get the ball in those guys' hands, I don't really see how North Carolina's offense is going to be able to really have a lot of success in this game, although they are going up against a TCU defense that's stout against the run, not really that great against the pass. Last year, TCU ranked in the 100s when it came to their pass defense. So you can throw on TCU. The question is North Carolina going to be able to throw on TCU? Are you a lot deeper at wide receiver this year? Do you have more than just Jordan Shipp who can get open for you? Is he the only guy that's going to be able to consistently get open, consistently create separation? And then most importantly, has North Carolina's offensive line improved? Last year, North Carolina's offensive line was as bad as anybody's. So coming into this year, you're rebuilding your offensive line through the transfer portal again. And we don't even know if they have even two guys who can be competent starters on this offensive line, let alone all 5 of these starters being good. So there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic about North Carolina's offense improving. You got Bobby Petrino, you have Billy Edwards, who some may view as an upgrade from Gio Lopez. But overall, I just don't know if Bill Belichick gave Bobby Petrino enough chess pieces to work with in order for UNC to even put up more than 27 points in this game. I could see UNC at best maxing out at 20, 24 points. If North Carolina wins this game, I feel it has to be a low-scoring affair. I feel the more points you see scored by TCU, the more pressure it's going to put on North Carolina. North Carolina's offense is more so about running the football and controlling time possession. That's an outdated philosophy. Most coaches in college football want to score as many points as fast as possible. So while Bobby Petrino is an upgrade compared to Freddie Kitchens, I kind of feel like he's somewhat being handicapped with just the lack of talent that North Carolina has on the offensive side of the ball, especially at quarterback. And I'm going to take TCU to beat North Carolina 34-20. I think North Carolina keeps this game competitive, but eventually North Carolina's lack of offense eventually wears out their defense. Their defense can keep them around in this game. They have a pretty legit defense. I think North Carolina's defense probably is in the middle of the pack in the ACC as far as ACC defenses go. Offensively, it's just where I have my concerns. I know about Demon June. I know about Jordan Shipp, but I don't know about who else you're going to be handing the football off to. Who else Billy Edwards is going to be slinging that rock to. I really don't know. And I don't think Billy Edwards in himself is a good enough upgrade for me to feel confident that North Carolina can cover that plus 9.5 point spread. So give me TCU. 34-20 is going to be my final score prediction in this game. If you're happy that college football is almost back, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you do not miss when we drop new content. We're talking all things football, college football, NFL, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you live, eat, breathe, sleep, and die football, JT Sports is the place to be. Make sure that you are subscribed. If you think you're subscribed, make sure you go ahead and double check, because the analytics show me that over 70% of you guys who watch the content are not subscribed. So if you think you're subscribed, make sure you double check, because you just might not be. And make sure that you give your boy a follow at JT Sports _ is where you can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok. Everybody seems to be extremely wrong about how good Alabama's going to be this year. Alabama doesn't need to be a perfect team to make it back to the college football playoffs last year. Or, I said last year, man. That was a bad endpoint. Just, if you're listening to this live, this is post-production stuff, man. Alabama doesn't need to be a perfect team to make it back to the college football playoffs this year. Last year, you tell me another team who could have had remotely the amount of success that Alabama had in 2025 with one of the worst rushing attacks in college football and one of the worst offensive lines in America. Alabama, in spite of their limitations, in spite of their flaws, their inefficiencies on offense, they were still able to be a lot more successful than 95% of programs in college football. They still have the ability to be elevated by a great head coach and a great quarterback. And I think that's the recipe for Alabama getting back to the college football playoffs this year. This defense is going to be really good. Don't know how good they're going to be on the front seven, but they have one of the best secondaries in college football this year. You have Dejon Lee, Byrum Brown returning. You got Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb back at safety for you. So you got a lot of experience and depth in the secondary. How that front seven shapes out, how the new linebackers look, how that improved defensive line and pass rush looks, that's to be decided. But the secondary is the strength of Alabama's defense. Offensively, Alabama's strength, I think, is the fact that you have the most talented quarterback in the SEC this year, and Keelon Russell. Keelon Russell's upside is what's going to make Alabama a playoff team. Keelon Russell is the kind of quarterback that is talented enough to mask some of the inefficiencies that Alabama had last year that are still major question marks entering this season. How good is Alabama's offensive line going to be? Even if Alabama's offensive line is still not that much improved, with the mobility and athleticism that you get from Keelon Russell, he can buy you extra time for guys to get open. He can create plays by himself. He can take a play that should result in a negative loss of 10 yards and somehow turn it into a 15-yard gain with what he can do from a playmaking standpoint. And also, just his arm talent alone, I think it's on par with Bryce Young. I think Keelon Russell has a Bryce Young kind of IQ as far as understanding the game, being able to read defenses, and physically, his arm talent is some of the best in all of college football. He can make any throw from any part of the field. Keelon Russell is the ultimate quarterback for Kalen DeBoer. This is a nuclear weapon that Alabama has put in the hands of one of the best quarterback developers in college football. Why am I confident that Keelon Russell is going to dominate at Alabama in his first season? Because look at the track record that Kalen DeBoer has at quarterback. He just helped Ty Simpson become a top 15 pick. Around this same time last year, we were questioning how good was Ty Simpson going to be, because remember, you have people out there saying, if Ty Simpson was so good, why was he able to oversee and DC Jalen Milroe? And he went on to be a first-round pick. Look at how good Michael Penix was under Kalen DeBoer at Washington for his 2 seasons there. And even Jalen Milroe somewhat was a better quarterback under Kalen DeBoer as compared to what he was under Nick Saban in certain games. It just more so Jalen Milroe was just too inconsistent week to week. But when Jalen Milroe was at his best, Alabama was hard to beat. So quarterback is the least of my concerns for Alabama this season, especially when you have the highest rated quarterback that Alabama has ever had. Keelon Russell is a transcendent level quarterback. This is a guy who has the potential to be a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft 2 years from now. And in the hands of Kalen DeBoer, with Ryan Coleman Williams, Lazir Brooks at receiver, I don't have any doubt in my mind that Keelon Russell is going to dominate this year. I get so tired of hearing this. Oh, it's too, we got to see more of him. He has a limited sample size. Sometimes you have to separate how you feel about the player from how you feel about the team. Because you have doubts about how good Alabama is as a team, you're questioning how good the quarterback is going to be when you really shouldn't do that, just with how good the guy calling the plays has proven to be and how good the guy that he's playing for has been at developing that position. Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer, they've been doing this with each other for a very long time, and they've yet to strike out with a quarterback. And I doubt that Keelon Russell is going to be the first. So with Alabama having Keelon Russell, hypothetically, let's say he plays up to his full potential, which I believe that he will, Alabama's going to be right back in the SEC championship game. At the bare least, they'll be right back in the college football playoffs because Keelon Russell has more talent than what Ty Simpson had last year. Keelon Russell can put Alabama on his back this year and get this team back to the playoffs in spite of the concerns that we have about the run game and the offensive line. And when it comes to the run game, Keelon Russell's rushing ability is going to help improve that. You didn't get the same kind of athleticism out of Ty Simpson as what you do with Keelon Russell. Two completely different players. Ty Simpson more so could pick up a few yards here or there if you gave him the opportunity to. With Keelon Russell, you give him green grass and he could use that and take it to the pylon for 6. Keelon Russell is just a different kind of animal that I don't think the rest of the SEC is going to completely know how to game plan for. And with Keelon Russell's mobility and the talent that he possesses physically, you completely change how Alabama operates as an offense. Alabama offensively is going to operate through Keelon Russell. Keelon Russell is going to be what decides how good or how bad Alabama possibly could be this year. And if he ends up hitting like how every quarterback under Kalen DeBoer has hit, besides Jalen Milroe, Alabama should at least win 10 games. Quarterback play in the SEC means a lot. The majority of teams in the SEC that have good quarterback play, most of the times their floor is 8 wins, and they have a ceiling of 10 wins or more. Keelon Russell, by the end of this year, should easily be the best quarterback in this conference. There's no other quarterback that compares physically, athletically to Keelon Russell. Keelon Russell is like Jaden Daniels, but on steroids. He's just way more agile. He's a way better athlete than Jaden Daniels, and he also has a stronger arm than what Jaden Daniels had. To me, the most talented quarterback Alabama has had prior to Keelon Russell has been Bryce Young. And I think that Keelon Russell trumps Bryce Young times 4 from a talent standpoint. The quarterback play and my trust in Kalen DeBoer is why I still believe that Alabama ends up being a playoff team this year. I don't know why we question Kalen DeBoer like this dude doesn't have one of the best records in college football against top 25 teams. This guy is 2-1 against Kirby Smart, 2-0 against Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian. So Kalen DeBoer has already proven that he can win the big games at Alabama. He can win the games that matter. It's just that you don't know if he's going to have Alabama playing up to their full capability against some of the teams that they are expected to beat. But anytime Alabama has been in a big game under Kalen DeBoer, they've won. It's just they've lost the games that haven't been as mainstream, that haven't been as much seen. And I think that's ultimately what Kalen DeBoer has been trying to improve. And Kalen DeBoer is one of those coaches that he's won everywhere. So it's kind of hard for me not to give him the benefit of a doubt. And he's also one of those coaches that makes changes when they're necessary, and when he has to make changes, normally he doesn't make the same mistake twice. So if there's something that has to be improved, Kalen DeBoer doesn't have to worry about improving it a second time because he already got it right the first time he had to improve it. So I'm just looking at how good Kalen DeBoer has been in big games, how good Kalen DeBoer has been at developing the quarterback position, from Ty Simpson to Michael Penix being first rounders. You give him this nuclear weapon in Keelon Russell. I don't see how Keelon Russell, at the bare least, doesn't end up being a Heisman finalist by the end of this season. So with how good Keelon Russell is going to be this year, he can carry Alabama's offense. Alabama, their offensive line is a question mark. Their run game is a question mark. A.K. Deere is already out, and he was expected to be one of their more dependable running backs this year. All that stuff I'm not really worried about, because I know that Keelon Russell, with his talent, can overcompensate for some of the limitations Alabama might have offensively. And if you would have started Keelon Russell last year and replaced Ty Simpson, who knows, maybe Alabama is a lot more efficient offensively, because Ty Simpson, sure, he put Alabama on his back throughout a stretch of last season, but ultimately, he just didn't have the ability to do that consistently throughout the entirety of the season. Keelon Russell can do that. We saw Bryce Young do that the 2 years he was a starter at Alabama. I hate how people act like Nick Saban's Alabama teams in his final few seasons were flawless. They were not flawless teams. When Bryce Young was the quarterback, Alabama was Bryce Young dependent. The defenses weren't really all that great. Bryce Young was really carrying Alabama the 2 years he was their starter. So when you get rid of Bryce Young, or Bryce Young leaves for the NFL, you end up going from him to Jalen Milroe with an entirely new coaching staff, because Nick Saban said that we were too Bryce Young dependent. A lot of people seem to have selective memory about how good those Alabama teams were. I remember it took Nick Saban a prayer Jordan Hare on 4th and forever to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl to even get to the SEC championship game. It was considered an upset when Alabama beat Georgia in that SEC championship. And then in his final game against Michigan, let's not forget, they had the lead. Excuse me. They were up in that game by 2 possessions, and they choked it. So those Nick Saban teams were far from flawless in his last 3 years. But since he's Nick Saban, though, you view those last 3 seasons through a more screwed perspective because it's Nick Saban. You look at that as a great coaching job. Compared to Kalen DeBoer, who inherited a program that was far from being a Lamborghini, because how can you say this was a Lamborghini when it took Nick Saban a prayer, a miracle on 4th and forever to beat Auburn to even get to the SEC championship game? You know, that's how I know that a lot of people more so are doubting Alabama because they're just tired of Alabama, more so from doubting Alabama because they're giving you legitimate reasons to doubt them. It is not smart to sleep on Alabama this year when you have a nuclear weapon in Keelon Russell at quarterback and the best big game coach in college football and big game Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer has a winning record against Kirby Smart, a winning record against some of these coaches that y'all claim to be better than him but are top 10 coaches, yet they have losing records against Kalen DeBoer. Ask Dan Lanning who his daddy is. It's Kalen DeBoer. Ask Steve Sarkisian who his daddy is. It's Kalen DeBoer. Ask Kirby Smart who his daddy is. It's Kalen DeBoer, man. I'm just tired of people making it seem like Kalen DeBoer is some scrub of a coach. There's a reason why Michigan and Penn State wanted this guy to be their head coach. So if this guy was as bad as how people try to make him out to be, he wouldn't have a winning record against top 25 teams. He wouldn't have winning records over some of the best head coaches in college football who some of y'all put over him. I'm just so tired of the lack of respect for how good of a coach Kalen DeBoer is. If Alabama is a flawed team, it doesn't scare me away from still viewing them as a playoff team, because Kalen DeBoer is going to find some way to overcome any kind of flaw limitation Alabama might have. How do I know this? Because I saw Alabama do it last year. You cannot tell me that 95% of college football could have pulled off what Alabama did last year. Not too many teams, even with the level of talent that Alabama has, could have made it to their conference championship game, could have won a playoff game with how bad their rushing attack was and how bad their offensive line was. Last year, Kalen DeBoer already showed you Alabama, even if they are a flawed team, their floor is still 10 wins, an appearance in the conference championship game, and a playoff win. Tell me how many other programs have that same capability to replicate what Alabama did last year, despite their limitations, despite their flaws. The fact that Alabama wasn't a complete team last year is what makes me even more confident they'll get back to the playoffs this year, with them having a more talented quarterback and with Kalen DeBoer attempting to fix the issues that plagued last year's Alabama team from being a more complete team. I do not expect for Alabama to have the same weaknesses consecutively with how good of a coach Kalen DeBoer is. You guys are so wrong about Alabama. You guys are going off perceptions and narratives instead of going off what history and what the results show us. Because based off Kalen DeBoer's track record, Alabama's more likely to make the playoffs again than they are to miss it. But that's just me, though. You find me another head coach that's 2-1 against Kirby Smart, that's 2-0 against Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian. Find me another coach that can lead his team to their conference championship game and a playoff win, having one of the worst rushing attacks in college football and a bad offensive line. That's just me, though. I'm an Alabama homer. I admit that. But it's more so I'm a Kalen DeBoer homer. So Miami has recently been picked by our guy Josh Pate to win the national championship. And as soon as I went in the comment section, I knew that there was going to be something that was going to pee me off and force me to have to come on here and educate all the uneducated folks about Miami this season, how good Miami is going to be. We already know that Miami's offense is going to be one of the best in college football, but apparently people don't know that the defense is going to be just as good as what the offense is going to be this year, because Miami lost Rueben Bain, Keontae Scott, and Akheem Mesidor, which is hard to replace a Rueben Bain. It's hard to replace an Akheem Mesidor. Players like that just don't grow on trees. They don't fall out of the sky. But when you recruit as well as what Mario Cristobal has, and the guys replacing Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor coming out of high school were top 100 recruits, you got to feel pretty good about the guys filling those big shoes. You also have to love that Corey Heatherman is back for his second year as Miami's defensive coordinator. Rueben Bain has been with Miami for more than 1 year. Last season wasn't his first year playing for Miami. The season before that, in 2024, most people from a national standpoint didn't even know who Rueben Bain was, because he wasn't put in the right scheme to properly maximize all of his talent and his skill set. Then you end up hiring Corey Heatherman, and all of a sudden, the entire world knows about Rueben Bain. Now Miami has one of the best defenses in college football. There's a reason why Corey Heatherman was a finalist for the Broyles Award. He took a defense that costed Cam Ward the opportunity to compete for a national championship and made it one of the biggest reasons for Miami's run to the national championship last year. Corey Heatherman is the biggest reason why Miami's defense is not going to fall off despite the losses of Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. Miami's defense in year two may not be as good on the defensive line as what they were last year, but this secondary could be better than what it was last year. This secondary could be the strength of Miami's defense this year, because they pretty much returned nearly everybody in that secondary besides Keontae Scott. Bryce Fitzgerald was a true freshman All-American. Xavier Lucas is still there. O.J. Frederick or Romanus Frederick is still there. You got Ethan O'Connor. You got Zachariah Poyser. There's a lot of experience and talent in depth in Miami secondary this year. So even if Miami's pass rush takes a step back, their secondary is going to take a step up. And I don't necessarily think that the pass rush is going to regress as much as what people like to think with the departure of Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. You got Damon Wilson out of the transfer portal, who had 9.5 sacks last year, was a all-SEC selection coming from Missouri. You got Marquise Lightfoot. You got so much talent in this Miami defensive line, Miami pass rush room, that it's not necessarily about who's going to be the next Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. It's more so who's going to be that next guy under Jason Taylor that ends up becoming a household name like Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. You're looking for those guys. I look at Amar Moten. He's a potential first-round pick. There's not a lot of defensive tackles that have the disruption ability that Amar Moten has, with how good he is against the run and the damage that he can do going after the quarterback. CBS ranked Miami's front seven among the best in the country entering this season, despite the departure of Rueben Bain and also Akheem Mesidor. And let's not act like these young guys like Marquise Lightfoot and Blunt weren't learning from Akheem Mesidor and Rueben Bain last year. Jason Taylor has talked about how Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor helped set the standard for some of the young guys that are going to be filling their shoes this upcoming season. Justin Scott said that he learned a lot from the work ethic of Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. So it's not more so you have guys that are replacing Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. You more so have guys that are looking to carry or are looking to get the torch and continue to carry it forward from where Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor left it at. You pretty much have a defensive line that has a lot of guys that aren't household names yet, but are looking to prove themselves to become household names once this season ends. You have a defense that, to me, with Corey Heatherman still being here, I really shouldn't see any drop-off. I really don't expect for Miami defensively to drop off so massively to where their defense is the big reason why they don't make it to the national championship, why they can't make it back to the college football playoffs this year, especially with how weak of a schedule Miami has this year. Who really can test Miami's defensive line without Akheem Mesidor and Rueben Bain in their conference schedule? Outside of maybe Clemson, I don't really think that anybody that Miami plays in conference play this year is really going to be able to take advantage of Miami losing Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor. Now, if Miami was playing in the Big Ten or in the SEC, okay, I will be a little bit more concerned, but I don't think anybody in the ACC is going to be able to make Miami miss losing Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor, since nobody else in the ACC recruits the line of scrimmage the way that Mario Cristobal does. I think that people are putting too much stock into the loss of Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor, and they are overlooking what Miami brings back in the secondary and what Miami is going to have stepping up and replace Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor, keeping this elite defensive line, keeping this elite pass rush production continuing. Miami's defense this year may not be as good as what it was last year, but this is still a top 10 unit. This is still an elite defense. And this was a defense that was elite, not because of Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor, but because of how good those guys were, along with how good this secondary was. You got people making it seem like Miami was carried defensively by Rueben Bain and Akheem Mesidor, when there were more dogs than just those two guys that contributed to the success Miami had defensively in 2025. Sleeping on Miami's defense is a big mistake this year, man. If Miami makes it back to the playoffs and they win the national championship like how Josh Pate predicts, trust and believe It's going to be because of how good that offense is going to be with Darian Mensah and Malachi Toney and Cooper Barcake, and also how good this defense is, still remaining an elite unit. And you probably, unfortunately, see Corey Heatherman get hired as a head coach. I don't understand why nobody hired this brother last year. If FSU had any common sense, I'm looking at Corey Heatherman. I'm saying, maybe this guy could end up being the guy who could fix FSU. Because for Miami's defense to go from what it was previously in 2024 to what it was last year in their first season under Corey Heatherman, I just don't see how the defense has that drastic of a fall off this season. I got one more thing I want to get into before we get up on out of here. But before we get into it, man, if you haven't already, make sure that you are tapped into our Discord server, man. We want to talk football with you 24/7, whatever time of the day, whatever place you may be at. Join the JT Sports Discord server so you can talk football 24/7, 365, however much your heart desires. We want to talk football with you. Join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. Do you guys remember Cormani McClain? He was a former 5-star corner who started his collegiate career at Colorado, Deion Sanders' first season. It didn't really go that well. He had a lot of maturity issues. He ended up having to transfer to Florida and didn't even receive a full scholarship. He had to earn a full-time scholarship, and he did that after his first season in 2024, which was headlined by a pick six against Kentucky. And then last year, Cormani McClain got even better. Even though he wasn't a full-time starter, in the games that he got in and got legitimate playing time, Cormani made plays. He had a big interception against Miami last year, and every time Cormani McClain steps on the field for Florida, it seems like he just has gotten better and better. And this offseason, Cormani McClain has taken strides to not just be in the rotation, but he's also taken enough strides to where we could see Cormani McClain being one of Florida's starting quarterbacks this year in John Summerall's first season in the Swamp. The thing with Cormani McClain that John Summerall has been emphasizing is consistency, because he's demonstrated that he has the talent. He's picked off Aaron Philo. He has been very good in coverage all throughout spring and the fall. And more so has been his tackling hasn't been up to the level that John Summerall wants it to be. So we've already seen the flashes of what Cormani McClain can be. It's just, what can he be when he finally puts it all together? And this is what makes this upcoming season for Cormani McClain so exciting as a Florida fan, because the past 2 years he's been in Gainesville, you have teases, you've had flashes, you've had moments of what Cormani can be. Now this season in 2026, you're wondering, what does the finished product look like? And I think now you have to finish Cormani McClain. You have a more mature Cormani McClain. This is not the same player that we saw at Colorado. This is a player that when he got to Colorado, he was young, he was immature, he didn't know what it took at that time to be a good college football player. Now he has. And sometimes, you need some of those growing pains early on throughout your career to become a better player, because for certain players, growing pains can be one or two things. For some players, growing pains could be a sign that you just don't have what it takes to be good at this level. Or two, you need those growing pains because they serve as lessons that can help you become a better player. And Cormani McClain, despite his college career not getting out to the start that he would have hoped for, they provided him lessons that have become growing opportunities for Cormani McClain to become the player that he currently is right now. And I think Cormani McClain is going to ball out. He's been balling all throughout spring and fall camp for Florida. He picked off Aaron Philo in Florida's first fall scrimmage. John Summerall said he also could have had multiple interceptions across those scrimmages. He had some tip passes, some deflected passes that he had. John Summerall has literally described Cormani McClain as being unbelievably good. And if he can be more consistent at tackling, finishing plays, I think that a breakout season for Cormani McClain this upcoming season is imminent, because this is the best coaching that Cormani McClain has ever gotten. John Summerall has a legit staff with a legit defensive coordinator, not being coached up by Sunbelt Billy anymore, Deion Sanders anymore. You're getting legit coaching. And when Cormani McClain puts it all together, not only does Florida have a starting corner, but they could have their best corner and one of the best corners in college football. And everybody remembers the disappointment. I think this is the year that everybody remembers the talent of Cormani McClain. And it ends up going on to be one of the greatest redemption stories in the history of college football, because most of the times when you have a guy like Cormani McClain that was highly touted coming out of high school, one of the best at his position, and it doesn't work out right away, you end up not hearing anything from him again. Think about all of the former five-star quarterbacks that have come and gone that we don't talk about anymore. You know, Cormani McClain has still been around making plays. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to make more of them because his snaps have been limited. He's had some experienced vets over him in the past years. Now this year, he's the guy. Florida lost a good amount of their experience in the secondary to either the transfer portal or the NFL draft. So they need some new guys to step up. And I think Cormani's going to be one of those players that steps up big time in John Summerall's first year. And Cormani McClain is going to be good enough to be a potential second team, first team, all SEC selection by the end of this season, because he's been making plays all throughout camp. He's been making plays all throughout his tenure at Florida. It's just now he's going to be afforded the opportunity to make a lot more of those plays now that he's expected to be in line to be one of Florida's starting cornerbacks this year. So if you've been waiting on Cormani McClain to finally have that breakout season, this is finally going to be the year. John Summerall has been raving about him. A lot of Florida players have been raving about him. And this is a guy that has done nothing but put his head down and work. Every time you hear about Cormani McClain, people are talking about the gains he's been making in the weight room, how fast he's gotten. Cormani McClain looks like a first-round NFL corner. The talent's there. Now we just need to see the play on the field be there, and I think that's going to show this year in Cormani McClain's third season at Florida. He already showed you glimpses when he got that interception against Miami 2 years ago, when he got that pick six against Kentucky. So the talent and the ability's there. Now the consistency has to be there, and I think it will. And I think that Cormani McClain finally has that breakout season that we've been looking for. And when it happens, is it not going to make you feel good? Even if you're not a Florida fan, just being a fan of this sport, you love seeing guys that end up getting written off and end up being able to find a way to rehabilitate themselves and end up becoming the player that everybody expected them to become. It just ended up being a lot later than what people would have hoped for. And that's what I love about the Cormani McClain story, because it's a life lesson to all of us that life isn't about instant gratification. Sometimes it's about delayed gratification. And for Cormani McClain, that delayed gratification is about to come. And that's why I've continued to give you guys updates about Cormani McClain. That's why he's one of the most popular college football players that we've ever talked about on the JT Sports Podcast. He may not be Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, or Tim Tebow, but over here on JT Sports, a lot of you guys seem to really care about Cormani McClain and seeing him finish out this redemption arc. And I can't wait to see Cormani McClain in action this year, because I think this is going to be his best season yet. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will be back either Thursday or Friday. Don't really know when, but I plan on doing a live after the final preseason game, just give my overall big picture takeaways from the preseason as we prepare for week 1 of the NFL regular season, which is only 2 weeks away from now. And I thought that week 1 was this week. Technically, this is week 0, but college football is weird. They're the only professional. Well, this isn't a professional sport. It might as well be with how they paying these players and how they're trying to get these NFL players back into college football. But I thought I was going to be going live this Saturday after Clemson LSU, but Clemson LSU play next week. So does Colorado Georgia Tech. So middle finger to week 0, because I love that college football is back, but I don't love week 0 because week 0 is kind of like an appetizer. It's a teaser to the full main course, and I hate that. Why not just give me Auburn versus Baylor this weekend? Why not give me Clemson versus LSU this weekend? Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that college football is back, but the games that we all want to see, we got to wait one more week to watch. But I'm just so happy that this thing is finally back. If you're happy college football is back, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we go live. You don't miss when we drop new content, because football is officially back. JT Sports is officially back. Make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms at JT Sports _ is where you can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok. Give us a 5-star review on all podcasting platforms if you enjoyed this episode, and join our Discord server. We want to talk football with you anytime of the day, any place, no matter where you're at. We're trying to talk football with you, man. So don't leave without joining the JT Sports Discord, man. Do you not enjoy talking about college football? Do you not enjoy talking about football in general? I gotta think you guys do, because I don't think you guys would be tuned in at 11:30 Eastern time if you didn't love football. So if you love football, join the JT Sports Discord. We're trying to talk ball with you, man. Link is down in the description down below. I appreciate you guys.